Have you ever used your cell phone while walking or driving? If yes, have you ever thought about any potential dangers to do so? According to National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, in 2019, there were 422 fatalities involving use of the cell phone while driving in the US. Indeed, we may need more time to react if we put our main focus on the phone screen rather than paying attention to the surrounding environment. You may have a question: what kind of distraction caused by mobile phone use lead to traffic accidents? How do people feel about the relationship between reaction time and the usage of mobile phone? In order to answer the questions, we have made an experiment and conduct questionnaire to investigate the topic. We invite 21 volunteers to participate in our experiment. We used one smartphone for the test subject, another smartphone for the reaction test, and a reaction test application, Reaction Test Pro. Participants were asked to play the reaction time game, where they have to follow the on-screen instructions and tap the screen when the screen changes color. In the beginning, players play the game under no distraction, where their reaction time would be recorded. After that, players were asked to speak to someone on a cell phone while playing the game. Lastly, players were asked to send a text message with one hand while playing the game. We performed 5 trials and calculate the average score for each player after each stage. Besides, we have asked a few questions to the volunteers, and most of them has responded. We mainly focus on the frequency and reasons they use mobile phone while walking. Other than that, we briefly asked whether they agree with the influence of using mobile phones on reaction time.
In their interview questionnaires, the majority of our volunteers, all of whom were between the ages of 18 to 22, said that they use their smartphones only sometimes while walking. Responses for smartphone usage varied from texting and calling to mobile games and even video watching. We then performed the reaction time test. The average baseline reaction time among our 21 participants was 0.376 seconds. When made to talk on the phone while playing the reaction time test, the average reaction time rose to 0.46 seconds and was even higher at 0.758 seconds when the volunteers texted with one hand and played the time test with the other hand. Comparing these values, we can see that, on average, the reaction time was affected by both calling and texting. To determine if the average reaction time found between the 3 groups was statistically significant, we performed 2 tailed basic students t-tests at 95% significance level between the average baseline in calling times, average baseline in texting times, as well as the average calling and texting time. From this test, it was concluded that the reaction time is significantly affected by texting or calling. Possible sources of error in our results may have risen from volunteers not texting as frequently as they would if this were not a recorded experiment. Other limitations in our experiment could be the heightened awareness of participants of the task at hand, whereas in real life these actions would be performed much more unconsciously.
You might have some questions on why the reaction time differentiates from each other. Let's try to investigate them case by case. First of all, the reason that why normal reaction time is shorter than one while testing or calling is believed to be related to the arousal theory. Arousal theory claims that arousability, which represents activity level of central nervous system, fluctuates between sleep and alertness and adjusts human response to stimulus. Low and high arousal causes decrement of performance. According to distraction arousal theory, stresses such as noise affects performance through drawing operators' attention away from primary tasks or increasing operators' level of arousal. In the experiment, the phone call and the message that participants test are probably the stressors. Second, the reason that Y reaction time for having phone call is shorter than the one while testing is believed to be affected by the experiment. The experiment requires the participants to press the circle when it turns from red to green. There should be no doubt that this is very likely a reaction test focusing on your site. When participants have a phone call, the main distraction will be the noise came from the phone. It means that the distraction being brought to the site is just very little. In comparison, when the participants are required to type the test, the site needs to focus on two places: the phone for reaction tests and the phone for testing messages.